All right, looks like we're live. Waiting for Fearless to jump on, and so I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing started. Welcome to the Trial and Error podcast. On today's episode, we're going to condense the nonsense. We're going to talk about why burnout is not a badge of honor, specifically with hustle culture. If you're out here grinding as an entrepreneur, but it can extend to any career that you go into, and so that's what we have on today's episode. I'm gonna go ahead and roll the intro, and we will be right back. Okay, we're gonna skip the intro. All right, so on the Trial and Error podcast, one of the things that we discuss is how we use failure to learn lessons to kind of build ourselves better. And the concept behind that is you fail until you make it. And one of the ways that we do that is a lot of the stuff that Fearless and I talk about, well, pretty much everything that Fearless and I talk about on this podcast is predicated on the fact that it's stuff that we've personally experienced, things that we've personally done to sabotage ourselves or impair our ability to be successful. And we share that. And the reason why is we want you to learn from the mistakes that we make as individuals and embrace the fact that sometimes failing is part of the lesson along the way. It's very important because we tend to duck failure and tend to try to avoid it as opposed to leaning into it. And so this is something that the burnout thing strikes near and dear to me because it's something that I've literally experienced as a business owner. Okay. So that's kind of what this is what this episode is. Okay. Hustle culture is failing a lot of people. And from it's kind of expanded from just something that is the solopreneur or the personal brand guy or whatever, and it's expanded out into all aspects of our work life. And we're starting to see more of that hustle culture stuff bleeding into regular work because a lot of the leadership are students of the hustle culture gurus online. And it's problematic because it's what it does is it embeds unhealthy habits into your regular work life. Okay. And then we end up seeing that as a virtue where you're willing to grind yourself down to the stump. Um, we see that as a virtue. It ends up becoming something that people end up carrying around as this badge of honor, and that's not what it is. Okay. And so before we get too far into it, we're going to be honest about burnout. And it's not a weakness. If you reach your point of burnout, you're not experiencing weakness. It's a wake up call. It's life telling you, hey, pump the brakes here. We're at our breaking point. And everybody reaches a breaking point, specifically when you engage in the putting your grind before your health kind of stuff. Um, I've experienced it a couple of different times in my career, specifically as I was climbing the ladder. If you will, I was climbing the ladder. I was kind of working with human services and working with kids and families and stuff. As I was climbing the ladder, I was really locked into put your head down and just grind through it. And that was kind of instilled in me as my ethos. And what happened was my first year on the job, I almost put myself into a mental health crisis because I had cut myself off from my friends and family. It was only me and my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, but I had secluded myself from all of my support system and I had totally given myself to this job that I had. And it is one of those jobs that, working directly in group homes, it can be one of those jobs that could consume you, especially if you got aspirations of climbing up the ladder and making a career out of it like I had. And I found myself grinding myself to the stump. And then I realized my wake up call was I actually had friends and family that were angry with me. because they're like, you just cut us all off. And I'm trying to explain to them, like, no, I had to in order to survive. And now that I'm older with the benefit of hindsight, I didn't have good boundaries around my work life. And a lot of it comes from the fact that at the time I was like 21, 22 years old. I was working in a job that required me to process at a higher level, if that makes sense. Because since I was like 21, I was working with kids that could be 18. So I was older. I was like only 3 years older than some of the kids. And so there are multiple levels that I had to process on, and the people I was with at the beginning weren't necessarily the best managers. They were really draconian in terms of, um, how they stepped to me, like, and what they expected out of me.
Ew.
Hey, Fearless.
What's going down?
I'm just running down the story about kind of my first experience with burnout, and then we could kind of backtrack to intros. One of the things I'm realizing is, since we're in this studio, I don't have a lot of my settings over here, so I'm trying to. Um, so anyway, I was in this position. I was 21 years old. I was probably 3 years older than the oldest kid that I was taking that was in the group home. Um, and I was dealing with people that weren't the best managers in terms of developing young people. Like, they were very strict and very regimented, but I learned how to be strict and regimented, but um, it was kind of a brutal 6 months.
Hmm.
I completely cut off everybody. I was really laser focused on, I just got to learn this and I got to get better at what I'm doing. And um, it put me in a bad place. Uh, the residual effects for my career is, it made me extremely paranoid. Like, everything I did, I thought somebody was out to get me at my job, in that career, in that place. I was at one of the big child care agencies in the country, and I was
Mm-hmm.
there for like 15 years. And it put me in a mind frame where everybody's out to get you. And there was a layer of truth to it, because we were one of the only all black homes on the facility's grounds.
Hmm.
So we had two family teachers, they were black, and then I was the assistant, I was black. And so there was an element of, we got the eye on us, and we cannot afford to screw up, because the scrutiny is going to be worse. And I understand that. I understood that back then. And I get it in hindsight, but there's a level where it goes overboard. And it embedded this real, it was paranoia about everything I did, and being hyper vigilant about making sure that I always cover my tracks, and making sure that I was always saying the right thing or appearing the right way. And it seeped over into elements of my life moving up the ladder out there,
Hmm.
where I didn't trust anybody.
Hmm.
And so it's a bad place to be in a position where you're trying to move up the ladder, but you really have a hard time trusting people. That situation lasted maybe about a year and a half, and then they relocated and went out to a different site. And so the next people that came in, I was still dealing with a lot of the, I don't trust you, we're living in a fishbowl, I'm super regimented thing. And they were like, hey, we're the Kool-Aid house, and everybody just kind of comes and goes as they please. And
Hmm.
we have food fights in the house and water balloon fights in the house. And a lot of shit that I did not grow up with. Like, I didn't grow up with, you can have food fights in the house or throw water balloons in the house. I didn't grow up with that. So there's a disconnect there. But then also, I'm coming from strictly by the book, toe the line kind of stuff. And they're like, hey, and so there was instantly a disconnect there, and I didn't trust them. And I ended up having reasons for it, but they weren't aligned. At the beginning, I'm like, they're too nice. And that's that trauma that you have when you encounter something, when you survive and endure something, you end up with that trauma. Like, these people are being too nice to me. And hindsight being 2020, I realized that what I had experienced was, I was burnt out of that job. They burned me out in the first 9 months, and I stayed on for 10 years. And so a lot of the residual stuff that I was carrying
You
around.
stayed on for how long? 10 years?
I stayed in that position for almost 10 years, but I was
Mm.
burnt out in the first 9 months.
9 months?
But the thing I will say is I had an okay experience with the first couple, a kind of negative experience with the second couple. The third couple I went with were godsend. They were great. They were vets. They kind of knew, they respected me and made sure that I got enough time with my family and I took care of them, make sure that they had time with their family. I didn't have somebody always looking over my shoulder. They're always like, we trust your decision making. We think you're great and everything. And so that was kind of a refreshing thing. And that allowed me to get rejuvenated, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And
I mean,
so,
yeah. Now, I was that boy sound.
yeah,
Somehow. I mean, not as a staff, but
yeah.
as a child there. So yeah, I feel you.
Well, and the crazy part is, when I started there, I was like 21 years old.
Mhm.
And so I was very much a kid working there. And so I was an older kid working with the kids there. I
Mhm.
had a little bit of college experience behind me. I dropped out of school because my mom got sick, and I was like, I need to go make money for myself so she doesn't have to take care of me. And so I was a kid working there too. And so I grew up as an older, because here's the thing. I realized that as I got older, a lot of times when we talk about adulthood and stuff like that, a kid's brain is developing until they're 24 years old, essentially, give or take, individual experiences or whatnot. And so, 20, 21, you're still kind of dealing with an older teenager in a lot of aspects, especially when it comes to executive decision making and stuff like that. And so I kind of grew up out there, and embodied a lot of the way that I interact and raise my kids, just based on some of the stuff that I encountered out there, for better or for worse. And so, um, when that's your first experience in a job where you never do anything right, everything you do, every breath you take, somebody's going to sit down at the end of the night and go over it with a fine-tooth comb and tell you everything that you did wrong. At 21 years old, 22 years old, that takes a real heavy toll on you out the gate.
Right.
And so that's why I say I was burned out in my first 18 months. But I stayed on for 10 years because it ebbed and flowed. The second couple we had some difficulty because there was inconsistency between the husband and wife. Husband was really chill, laid back. Wife was really strict, and I was trying to play the middle. And a lot of times, things that were gaps in between them, I ended up getting feedback for.
Hmm.
And I didn't have anywhere to go on it. Like, I couldn't go up the ladder because they were the ladder. Like, I had to go past them to get to somebody above them. And so I finally said, listen, I'm a long-term person. All my staff reviews up until this point have been record setting. They're some of the highest marks you've ever seen on this campus. In this position, I need to get transferred in order to maintain the relationship because it's going sideways really fast. And so that's when they moved me. So that was my first experience with the burnout thing. And I was kind of, before you came on, one of the things is I was discussing, and we're going to go and do the intros real quick. But one of the things I'm trying to catch Fearless up is, one of the things I said is, I feel like a lot of the hustle culture stuff is infiltrating regular society, regular jobs and regular management and stuff. And so what we're seeing is a bunch of employees who are employees are not business owners. They're not personal branding they're not doing their own thing. They're actually kind of in having to work for this specific company, but they are managed by hustle culture folk at the top, where you have to grind yourself to the stump in order to prove that you're worthy of being employed there. And there's no room for good enough, like somebody who's just happy where they are and don't necessarily want to move up the ladder. It's almost like, and I talk to people all the time on that end of it, especially in the Silicon Valley part of it, where it's never enough for it to be good enough, where you're just kind of content where you are. You always have
Right.
to be climbing and aspirational. If you're not, then they see you as a dead end, as opposed to somebody who's just really competent with their job and happy where they are.
Okay.
So that's the conversation. Um, let's go ahead and do the intros real quick, and then
All
we
right.
can
Do
we
it.
can
And,
kind
yeah,
of jump in.
yeah, sure.
All right. My name is Brian. I own a marketing agency called I Sell Words. I am a marketing coach who wants to teach you how to market your own business. I also have ADHD, and so I have a special affinity for working with and coaching, coaching, assisting, consulting to business owners with ADHD, teaching them elements of marketing and how to get their business on the right track. I run um, I kind of have a program called the Unstuck Sessions. It's structured problem solving, and basically, it's trying to figure out what that one big problem is that we can remove that will allow you to flow downstream and proceed and enjoy success. And so that's really what I do. A lot of my content is tailored to the working with the ADHD brain, and so I do a live stream on Mondays and on Fridays. The Monday one is just tips and tricks, marketing stuff, task management stuff for ADHD entrepreneurs. Friday is a co-working session where we do body doubling. So a lot of times it's me working and just being there, hopefully that you can bring in some tasks that you need to get done. The idea with body doubling is having another person in the room. Just sensing that somebody else is in the room can sometimes allow you to stay focused and get through a task that you're working on. And so I do those Friday around noon. And so that's what I got. If you want to reach out to me, I'll drop my email in the chat. But yeah, that's what I do.
I don't do anything.
Fearless does everything.
I'm just a guy.
Nah, go ahead and
Just a guy.
big yourself up, man. Talk about what you got going on.
Yeah. So every I think tonight is our 54th. Yeah, Studio 54. So tonight is our studio. Tonight is our 54th episode in Ags Fearless, where we talk about coaching. We ask questions and we do a lot of training. So the objective at the end of the day is to help you to simplify your everyday life. That's it. We do some rethinking, reframing, and retraining our brains on how to do that. That's literally it. There's a lot more that goes into that, but just for time's sake, that's what we do. Yeah, that's it. I like my shit to be simple and clean, man.
Okay.
One of the things that you were talking about, because if you know anything about me, ladies and gentlemen, I like to take notes. And one of the things that Brian, you said that I really resonated with was this hustle mentality, this hustle culture that we live in. And it's just so funny because one of the things that we talked about last night on Ags Fearless, the whole entire show was based on 6 recycled myths of mainstream hold on one second. Of mainstream self-help stuff. So one of the things that I taught people was that in self-help, there's usually 5 or 6 different key mentalities that they consistently keep running through. This is a constant thing. So the first thing is positive thinking. Second thing is goal setting. Massive action, which is kind of what we're talking about today. Believe in yourself. Success leaves clues. And this overnight success type of pill that they shove down your throat.
Right.
So one of the things that we really talked about was today we're talking about, burnout. And that's one of the things that we talked about. And the fastest way to burn out is this whole Nike mentality. Just do it. Take bold steps. Move fast and break stuff. Take massive action. That is some of the biggest crock of shit, like in general. Let me explain something to you. As a certified crazy man and life coach and philosopher, let me explain something to you. Anything that's worth doing quick, big, and fast, when you hit the ground, You know those tops that you spin them
Hmm.
and they seem stable for a while, and then what happens is that it starts wobbling all over the place, and then it dies out. That's what burnout does to you. Just do it. Take bold steps. Take massive action. Move fast. So you're gonna be stable at the beginning. You're gonna be moving through, moving and grooving, like the Hoovers in California would say, right?
Hmm.
The problem with that is that because that system may not necessarily align with your core values, your core system, your core beliefs, values, ethics, uh, your morals, your character, your integrity,
Hmm.
your belief system. You know what happens? Those things, when they become incongruent with each other, see, you can make anything stick for a little bit, especially at first, right? Just hold it together. But when you have too much over here going on, but you don't have a stable foundation, whatever you set on top of that, what do you think is going to happen?
I was gonna fall by the
It's going
wayside.
to fall over. And not just fall over, it's going to be thrown everywhere. So we have to be very careful on when we sit on that proverbial table in general. And burnout is a part of that, where we think that success leaves clues. So we sit there and we watch somebody like, um, give me somebody's name that's a big influencer now.
I mean, like a Gary V or something like that.
Okay, let's use him. So we use a Gary V type of person, and you think that you need to grind on these videos, grind, right?
Hmm.
Great, wonderful, congrats. But Gary Vaynerchuk Chuck owns a studio company. He owns a marketing company. So for him, y'all ain't starting at the same place by no means. So his grind and your grind are not going to look anything alike. So when you sit there and think that, well, I just got to take massive action to get to that point, perfect. But what happens when you get to that point, you're going to be burnt out.
Yep.
So I know that I've always looked a little older, especially when I was young. It's weird. The older I get, the younger I look. But that's black people in general. So
Mhm.
that's why melanin is such a huge thing for certain people, right? When I was 17, I looked like I was like 25. So I used to be able to go into liquor stores and buy stuff constantly, right? All the time. People used to send me in, hey, tell Red to go get us something to drink. So I'll go in, grab it, come out, no problem, right?
Right.
Never got carded. When I hit 21, 22, I was so burnt out of drinking
Oh yeah.
that number one, here's the thing. If I was going to be really honest with myself, I never liked the taste of alcohol anyway. This
Right.
was never my thing. I did it because the people around me, my environment, my culture was doing that. So that's why I was doing it. And then once I get 21, 22, I was done with that. Right. And so, like, and then got to the point I didn't even like buying alcohol. Still, I'm 46 years old and I still don't like buying alcohol like that. I don't. I don't indulge in it. I don't like drinking. If I have a beer, I'll have one maybe every other blue moon. You know, and even then I'll have a Coors Light, and then I'll baby the most that beer will sit in my refrigerator forever.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and what I'm saying is that not everything when they talk about success leaves clues, copy what successful people do. You can ruin yourself doing that because it's not aligned with who you are.
Yeah. And the environment that created their success may not be the same environment that you have
It
access
may not be
to.
conducive for yours.
One of the things is, and I will kind of, with the Gary V thing, I will say he has been transparent about. He's like, hey, a lot of the stuff that was in the world for me when I started my journey, on the internet with internet marketing and stuff, and marketing his dad's store and stuff, it was still new. And so the example is ads on social media were cheap. Like they were still testing out the platform. So you could buy Facebook or Google ads for pennies on the dollar and
Mm-hmm.
outperform everybody else in your sphere who wasn't utilizing it. And it was a small investment to leverage a big outcome. Now
Mm-hmm.
the game has changed. These Facebook ads and Google ads they're way more expensive, than they used to be. And so it requires more money to pour in to make things happen. And you can't just use his experience as a complete and total blueprint without having some context about what
Right.
aligns with what's in your world and what your skills are. I see that a lot with people where they see a successful person and then they end up beating themselves up because they're not able to do the things this successful person does, and it doesn't have anything to do with them. It's not a negative on them. It's the fact that the environment's different. It's not the same thing. And so um it is really interesting to see, especially now on social media, because I ended up going down the rabbit hole because I was testing out some theories about this, and it's kind of aligned with what we're talking about. I was testing out some stuff. I said, let me follow some of these get money people on YouTube. And when you start following a specific tract of content, they start serving it to you. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm watching more and more and more and more people in my feed. And it's intentional because I'm sitting there like, okay, what are they selling to people? And what they're selling is, I did it, you can do it too. Okay. But
Yeah.
then there's always another layer underneath.
Yes.
I did
Yes.
it. It's,
Yes.
one is, well, I saw one this morning, and dude was really honest. Like, he was really transparent about how he set his stuff up, but he also had professional experience working with companies and brands and creating social media content for them.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew cameras and lighting and all that other stuff. So he had a whole set of skills that he's already bringing to the table
Right.
in order to have the success that he has. So it's like, I can do it and you can do it too, but it's going to require work. And he was transparent about that piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of those people on there like, yeah, and you can make money in your sleep and you can do X, Y, and Z. And a lot of times it's not understanding that in order to get to that making money while you sleep thing, it requires so much work and so many different things that you have set up and rolling to technically make money while you're sleeping that people want to skip the step of putting in the work, and they think it's sold to them as, well, you can just be where I am without experiencing the things I did. And it goes into the concept that we talked about a couple weeks ago. People sell the destination as opposed to the trip.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times on social media, especially in the hustle culture world, they're selling you the destination of what it's like to have all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they're treating the destination like, and you could be here too.
Right.
Instead of saying, yeah, and it took me 12 years of doing X, Y, and Z and having these specific connections and cultivating these specific relationships and leveraging these specific things in order to have the thing that I have now.
Yep.
And so we end up reducing people's success to snapshots as opposed to watching the whole story.
Correct. So, one of the things that I'm looking at what you were talking about was, so you had just basically said that, so the experience and the skill set, right? So whenever we talk about, if there's somebody saying that, like if they're a YouTuber or whatever, and they're talking about, well, you can do this and the other. You sent me an article yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and the article was on Think Media, and it was about the creator's attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And the creator's attorney is talking about, and Think Media was talking about the fact that YouTube, in particular, because they didn't talk about the other ones, they just talked about mainly YouTube, are deleting channels like off top because of some of these claims that people were making.
Yep.
Or whatever. So when you go in there and you say, yeah, you can make $100,000 in less than 30 days Just using these 5 simple steps. Cool. Not a problem. Take it down. Take it down.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, they're tired. They're tired of seeing that type of stuff or whatever. And they're on one hand, they're like, we need to protect the community.
Right.
On the other hand, they're like, we're tired of you in general. And people like you. So we're not doing that. Um, Again, like I said, last night the night before we talked about the dark side of the self-help industry.
Hmm.
Last night we talked about the specifics of how they sell us on these things or whatever. And it was basically saying they're not selling you a transformation. They're selling you a subscription model.
Hmm.
Think about that. They're not selling you a transformation. They're selling you a subscription model. And one of the things that, and maybe this is hurting myself doing this, but one of the things that I do every night now, everything that we talk about, I give people a cheat sheet of everything that we discussed. And if you don't mind, I'll show the audience what I'm talking about so that they can, hold on one sec, so that they can kind of see it for themselves. This is what I show people. This is what I send them. I send this to everyone. Every time that we're done with something, I send this out or something a variant to it.
Hmm.
The reason is because if you need me after we're done, I'm not doing my job. I'm not helping you. Right? There's a difference between sitting around giving people slogans and platitudes as opposed to giving you step-by-step instruction on what to do. So that's what I do. I give step-by-step instructions, and I try to make sure it's only like maybe 5 or 6.
Right.
And I send it to you like this. You can keep it wherever you need to, but I have backups. I have copies of everything. So our show is about, what is it, like 90 minutes long.
Right.
And we talk about a whole gamut of different things, but we usually stay on one subject. So when I'm talking about this stuff, it's not just that I'm giving you hacks. I'm giving you the real shit, practical steps on what to do when you're in this situation, when you're being taken advantage of, who these people are over here. And one of the things that I told people is that everything that we do, one of the things I say, clarity for the most part. I say clarity is not something you find outside of you. It's something that you find within you. So everything we talk about is me first. So if you talk about dreams, goals, aspirations, you have to go in first.
Hmm.
Before I can look outside there, I got to look inside here first. If I cannot do that, we have a problem. So that's kind of one of the things I want to discuss. And then, hold on one second. So we also have superstitions. I wanted to show you this right quick. And this is for the people who are, damn. This is for the people who are watching what we do right now. I want to give you guys this thing, and I hope that you take it. I hope you run with it. I hope you use it because I guarantee you it will help in the way that we do things. Give me one sec.
Okay.
So I'm going to go out of here, go back in. Hold on one sec. Okay, there we are. So I wanted to share this with everybody. This is what I call ears, right? As you can see on the back. If you want to learn how a belief is built or you tear down a belief, this is how you start it. Experiences, assumptions, references, and superstitions. That's how you destroy it. That's how you build it. When you think about it, you can believe anything that you want, given enough experience in it, given enough assumptions, references, and certain belief systems that you've created or borrowed from other people. So when we talk about somebody else's path in life, if you don't have their experiences, you don't have their assumptions, you don't have their references or their belief system,
Hmm.
It's not gonna. I don't give two shits what it is. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. Think about it like this: diets, all of them work for different people. All of them. Every trainer out there, every single one of them, will tell you, and this is 100% of them, will tell you 80% of your workout, 80% of you being healthy, 80% is what you put in your cake hole, what you put in your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
20% is doing that out there, is doing the lifting, the walking, the running, stuff like that or whatever. 80% of your dieting has to be what you eat. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. How is it that there's certain people that go to the gym every single day and eat like shit and you still wonder why they're fat as fuck? Change what you eat, all that weight's gonna fall right off. Right? So we know this, but our experience tells us something different. Our references tell us something different. Our superstitions tell us something different. So again, if you want to destroy a limited belief about yourself, question the experience of it. Question the reference. How do you know this? Who said that? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Really start questioning. Start really questioning some of those beliefs, whatever. So again, one of the biggest things that I do is I make sure that I educate people on what my industry is. Like one of the things that we all found out together is that the self-help industry is a $13 billion industry in general. That they make more money than the movie industry
Mm-hmm.
and the music industry combined. Combined. And yet instead, most people don't finish their courses, don't finish the books that they buy, and don't attend any of the shit that they purchased.
Right.
So this is literally lottery money that y'all just putting out there. Lottery money.
Yeah.
That's literally it's lottery money. And that's the reason why most of these coaches treat it like it's a lottery. Shit, I'm out here winning. I ain't got to give you shit. I don't have to be accountable because my job is to put it back on you. And as a life coach, as a certified life coach that's been doing this for 23 years. No, what the fuck are you talking about? No, we're not doing that.
Well, and I know a lot of times when we say, because I'm jumping back a little bit, but when somebody presents it on social media and say, you can do X, Y, and Z in 5 simple steps. Okay. So this is kind of a language trick. The steps may be clear, they may be transparent, they may be simple, but some of these simple steps require multi-step processes to get to the point where you can have simple steps. And so, specifically, well, if you want to sell affiliate products, all you need to do is talk about the affiliate product and put it into your, talk about the affiliate product and then show it to your audience. Well, what if you don't have an audience? It requires you having an audience. You have to build an audience of people that watch your content in order for them to even see it. All you got to do is just send out an email to your email list. You have to build an email list. So it's simple, assuming that you have these specific things already done.
Yeah.
And so when we start talking about simple and ease and all this other stuff, it's easy if you've done the groundwork before, but a lot of times, especially when it comes to the guru stuff, a lot of the people that are victims, and I don't say victims, but are susceptible to a lot of the guru stuff, they're early stage. They've never done anything before. This is their first thing that they've ever done. And they don't have an audience. And they don't know how to do stuff. They don't know how to record stuff. They don't know how to build an email list. They don't know how to do offers and all this other stuff. So they don't have the framework underneath them. If they have the framework underneath them, it's simple. But they don't have the framework and knowledge underneath them, and a platform to do all this stuff. And so I think that's really where um, that's where people fall into trouble, because
Right.
they end up falling into this. I don't know. They end up falling into this idea that, oh, it's simple. I should be able to do it. This stuff should be simple. Then they start beating themselves up because they haven't built the framework to make it simple. Because they don't have the knowledge of how to make it simple.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it takes a long time to build a mailing list. It takes a while to build a social media platform and an audience that trusts you. And a lot of times, you're telling people, you're wondering why people, why you're having a tough time with it. You're doubting yourself because you don't actually know what you're doing. You're following what they told you, but you don't really have a good framework of knowledge. But you're asking people to give you money to do the thing that you don't really know how to do. You just know from watching somebody else. And so there's all kinds of nuances that can feed into why somebody ends up feeling burnt out with, the with the social media world and playing the social media game, because you have to cultivate an audience.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do all this other stuff. And so, one of the things is, and we talked about, your Ty Lopez's and a couple of other cats on there too. The preponderance of this stuff, and when I first started seeing a lot of the hustle culture stuff, is I saw one of his videos. He's walking around a mansion. He's walking through, talking to his camera and all, here's my Lamborghini and stuff. And you can have this too. And that is a social media thing. That is a marketing thing. He's showing you all the success. You showed it early on where you got that you showed how people flash those wads of cash on the stream. All of that stuff is meant to lure you in, to show, oh, this is what the success looks like. And it's easily attainable if you do these simple things. Okay. And that's where I really started seeing it. And you start hearing about, you got to wake up and grind. And have you seen the video of the brother that his morning routine, he wakes up and he does some push-ups, and then he has the sparkling water that he dunks his face into and all that other stuff. It ended up becoming a meme online because that's really how it be. Like, they're showing people how a lot of these hustle culture dudes get out there. And it's not just dudes, but you know what I'm saying, the hustle bros, they're showing how they lure people in, and they get people thinking, man, I could be successful if I would just get up in the morning and have a morning routine and do some push-ups.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is he's showing you that he has a disciplined way of dealing with his morning, and it's not just chaotic. But people don't, since there's no context to it, people assume I just need to copy what he's doing.
Correct.
And it becomes glamorized. The video stylized. I could probably tell you what how they did the color correction on it and everything. It's shot cinematically. It's a beautifully shot video. I'm hesitant to show it because it's been so memed up. But
show me. I want to see it.
Okay, so I'm gonna pull it up here in a second. One of the things is, when you get into this grind set kind of thing, and I'm not saying grinding is bad. I'm not saying having a focus on a goal and pursuing that goal doggedly is a bad thing. Okay, I'm not saying that, but a lot of times people fall into it because they're chasing somebody else's goal doggedly as opposed to their own goal. Does that make sense?
I mean, basically, one of the things that I teach in our class is discipline and structure.
Yeah.
Like that's all it is. Discipline and structure. And a lot of it, and even when we talk about motivation, one of the things I tell people is, man, if you're going off of things because you're trying to be motivated, man, you're not going to find motivation that way. Most of us are not motivated to do shit.
Yeah.
We're motivated to keep it going, but we're not motivated to start. Now, you might be inspired to start, but even with that, sometimes takes discipline. I was inspired to do this for years and I never did it. Right? So what happened? Well, I meet that particular person, like I always say, that has a utterly profound way of doing certain things.
Hmm.
That's very simple. I love simplicity. I find that I'm like, wow, okay, that's kind of deep. I go home, hey, in 2 days, this is what I'm going to be doing. I don't even tell anybody. I just do it,
Yeah.
right? And then for me, it was more of that social proof, that social commitment that I made because at that now I've told everybody what I was going to do on the day that I was going to do it, how many days I was going to do it, and what we were doing. Hags Fearless, live Q&A,
Hmm.
coaching, training for
Right.
100 days.
Sorry.
And today is 54 days that we've been doing it. And the one question that I have about this whole process is why didn't I do this earlier?
Yeah.
And again, the biggest thing that the reason why I didn't do it earlier is because of experience. I had none. Assumptions. I assumed that one thing was going to lead to the other. I had no references to be able to call a person and ask. And my belief system kind of had me like, no, this is how you need to do it in order to succeed. And I mean, think about it. Isn't that how we hooked up?
Yeah.
I'm talking to Diane Bruce, a good friend of both of ours. I tell her what I want to do. She puts me in touch with you. And then we just kind of start rocking from there. So, again, man, you do what you need to do in order to make it. And I get that. But I also think that we need a different experience. We need to develop a different type of assumptions for things. We do need to have, when we talk about references, what references do we have? Who can we call on? Who knows this? What are the empty gaps? Matter of fact, we talked about that last week.
Hmm.
The those confidence gaps
Yeah.
that we have in some of this stuff, and that's what references are. And then the superstitions that we have is, well, my past tells me that people who have money are evil. The Bible says that money is the root of all evil.
Hmm.
Like, no, it doesn't. And who told you that? And did they have money? Were they struggling? Well, yeah. So how would they know? You know what
Right.
I'm saying? I'm just saying, like, again, with with those superstitions, we're consistently challenging the legs on that table.
Right.
Because once you really start challenging stuff, it's just like I don't want to say like a bully, because there's some bullies who can fight and who don't care about who you go get or what they just gonna keep doing whatever,
Right.
right? But 70% of the time, it's not that serious. So whatever you set on top of your belief system, your values are gonna have to go there, your character's gonna have to go there, integrity, yeah, everything that you stand on is gonna have to sit on that table of beliefs. And
Right.
if you don't have it, if it's not stable, everything's coming down.
So I have the video. I'm gonna show it to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's Ashton Hall, and so it's his morning routine.
Gotta give it to me.
All right, let me go ahead and play it.
Hey, pause that right quick.
Yep.
Hey, his nails are all done and everything.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. You know the reason why he uses Sensodyne toothpaste?
Why?
Because if you have hot or cold stuff wrong with your mouth, it basically closes up those spores that you have in your mouth. So it's usually for people with bad teeth or don't take care of their teeth that well, or they just have crappy teeth. You have to use Sensodyne for that. But keep going.
All right. So
That Rogaine?
yeah.
Preaching about the arrival of Christ.
Thank you.
So a lot of this is speaking to a very specific subgroup of people, right?
You think?
People that are early stage, they don't know where to go. I want to get my life together. It's targeting young men, essentially. Like it's really targeting young men.
This has to be like a 15 to 35 type of thing, because nobody in my peer group is like, what, looking at this inspired. By no means.
But one of the things is the hustle culture. One of the things you got to understand is in the hustle culture sphere, there's a lot talking about morning routines. There's a lot of content about this is what my morning routine is. And so that's what this video feeds into. And this has made him a lot of money. I'm going to just be honest. I'll explain the mechanism behind it here in a second.
Going up.
So the idea is this is all of his morning routine. Now, his morning routine involves a camera crew following him around from place to place, but we're going to leave that for a second.
Going up.
3, 2, 1. It's good to meet you, man. Respect it. That's crazy. Thank you, bro.
So, again, this is supposed to be showing you he's hopping into an expensive car. He's doing all these workouts and everything. It's stuff that's supposed to be, working out is great. Getting up in the morning early, and if that's how your day is set, that's great and everything. But it's selling you the idea that this is what it takes for to be successful, as opposed to this is just what this guy does in the morning.
Thank you.
And this is kind of him joking about how people are responding to his videos and stuff.
You've made your first 10,000. Congratulations. We got to do at least 20, bro.
So this is speaking to a very specific subtype of people that consume content online. Like you said, it's that 20 to 35 people that are kind of figuring out their way in the world, and they're seeing all these super successful people. And he can step in as somebody who's had success on social media and say, yeah, this is what I do. And the mistake that a lot of people think is this is all he does. He's had to have money to pay for a camera crew. He had to have money to pay for stand-ins and actors. He had to have money to pay for the assistant who cooks his meals. I don't understand the banana thing, the banana rubbing on the skin thing.
After you already took a shower.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the content is meant to draw people in. And it's really predicated on the fact of you want to hustle, you want to be successful. This is what you got to do. You have to wake up at 3 a.m. Now, according to his bio and stuff, and according to who he is, he has to wake up that early in the morning because I think he said somewhere along the lines, I found out that he does Forex or is an options trader or something. He has to wake up for the foreign stock exchanges.
Okay.
And so that's one thing that day traders have to do. They got to wake up like when the Chinese and Japanese exchanges come online, which is like 2 a.m. or something along those lines.
Wow. Okay.
And so, but it's selling the concept that you have to do something similar to this in order to be successful. And I'm going to tell you, a fast track to burnout is not getting enough sleep and doing things that you don't necessarily it's not even doing things that you don't want to do, but forcing yourself to constantly always do a thing that you don't necessarily want to do. And it's not really improving your station in life, if that makes sense.
Well, no, it makes perfect sense because I don't like working out.
Yeah.
But I work out because I know that what the end effects will be,
Right.
whatever, and what the end effects will be if I don't. So,
Right.
man, let's go ahead and knock it out. So even if I can't, like today, for instance, I knew that we're gonna be doing this, and then I got some other stuff going on later on. So I might park my car way on the other end of something,
Mhm.
and then walk that whole entire distance into wherever I'm going, and then walk all the way back to my car. Because again, I know that I could park somewhere close. No, I'm gonna park way back, right?
Right.
And it's it's so funny, man. While we were watching that, and you had mentioned this, Ty Lopez, right?
Mhm.
I remember one of the things that we have for what is it, for my car?
Mhm.
Yeah, for my car, right? I have a Tesla, so I decked it out and put all my own stuff on it or whatever. So it's white and red and all the red trimming. I have a certain steering wheel and all that stuff. So everything is a third person party, but for my car.
Yep.
The one fun thing that I have in my garage is my friend LeVay and I built this big, huge bookshelf in my garage
Mhm.
that's just full of books, right? And I was sitting there thinking, where did I get this idea from? And I thought about that. I'm like, dude, I think I got it from Ty Lopez,
Okay.
right? And I love the idea, of that in general. I mean, I have a motorcycle and my car in there, whatever. And I mean, it's not a foreign vehicle. It's not a $150,000 car, whatever, but it's a car that I wanted, you know? Um, and in that garage are the things that I love, which is my books. So I mean, dude, I think that you can compare yourself. I think that you can do one of the things that I told people when it comes to success leaves clues, right? Copying what other successful people do.
Right.
And like I said, I think that you can do that as long as whatever they're doing is congruent with who you are.
Right.
As long as it's congruent with it, do it. If your thing is like Gary Vaynerchuk and to get out there and go do your thing, then go do it.
Right.
For my thing, like I love wisdom. I'm a life coach, philosopher. So my life is going to be based around this. Y'all see this stuff? Hold on. Let me move my camera. Right behind me, all those lights, those are books. Hold on, let me try to move to the side. On the side, hold on, let me see if you guys can see it. This rolling thing behind me, books. Where my TV is, underneath that is all books. I have a bookshelf literally right to my left. I mean, again, so matter of fact, this lady came to my house to deliver my stuff, and she's like, "I know you." I said, "Do you?" She said, "Yeah, you're that guy who reads all the time." I was like, "Oh, yes, I am."
Yep.
So I love to be known as that guy, and that's the reason why I call my channel Acts Fearless, right? You can't have a big ass head like mine and not be reading something. You can't have both. You gotta be smart, but you can't be dumb with a big head. That doesn't work.
Right.
You gotta be one or the other. So I mean, but Ty Lopez, though, bro, that's where I got the idea of putting a bookshelf in my garage. Now I will say this. I'm probably gonna have to move that. The reason is because he lives in California. We live in the Midwest.
Right.
That's not a good idea because condensation, while the winter winds, rain, all that stuff, you open that door, your books are getting ruined. You know what I'm saying? Unless you put them
Right.
back on the far back of the wall or whatever. But I was just kind of thinking like, well, you could just go get some new bookshelves or just build something different. which I love to build. So, time to do that. But I mean, but that's what I was talking about with success leaves clues. We're not telling y'all not to do what other people do. We're
Right.
not saying that. All we're saying is that it needs to be congruent with who you are and what you're doing. That's all we're saying.
Well, and it's got to align like it, and it's also got to align with real goals that you've set for yourself that are internal to
Yes.
you and not external,
Yeah.
not external seeking validation from other people. And a lot
Correct.
of times, and it goes into our next point. A lot of times, especially with the hustle culture thing and the burnout culture, a lot of times we do the validation thing when we sit around and brag about, yeah, I was doing 18-hour days here and doing all the X, Y, and Z there. And, you know, we end up bragging on that like that is this amazing thing. Now, if this is something that you wanted to do, that's fine. If it's something that aligned with a specific goal you have, I guess that's okay. But a lot of times that ends up becoming normal where you're like, yeah, I do 60 and 80-hour work weeks just because that's what I do. That's what I like to do.
It's so funny. I don't even know how long. I don't even know. I do a presentation every day.
Mhm.
It takes me 30 minutes to 1 hour to compile a whole entire presentation. And 60% of the time, I don't like my presentation.
Mhm.
So I'll create a brand new one within like 20 minutes and I'm done.
Oh, really?
I couldn't tell you how long it takes me to do this because it's already in my head. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like tonight, right now, I know that our presentation is going to be a 2-part series on the laws of the universe because I get sick and tired of people talking about the law of attraction, and then they fucking leave it there. It's like, dude, you got a bunch of other ones that go into that. It's not just that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to compile. I think I got 12 of them. So we're going to do 6 today, 6 today, 6 tomorrow, right?
Yep.
And then after that, I think we'll probably do the hero's journey again because that was one of my favorite presentations to do. And I think that every so often we need to kind of look at where we are in that hero's journey.
Right.
Because this is your story. You're the hero. Where are we at? God, this is what I'm talking about, y'all. I love what I do. I love it. This shit right here. What?
And one of the things is we got to discuss because I'm sitting there like, dang, I got my own stuff going on and stuff. One of the things is Fearless will tell you too. I kind of we worked together to start him on the path of this live stream and stuff.
Yes.
And so it's really rewarding to see Fearless fully embracing it. I do have something coming up that I'm going to be doing, which is basically it's AMA, Ask Me Anything. We're going to use Google Meet. We're going to keep it simple. On Wednesdays, about 11:30 to 2:30, starting on the 14th. And if you want to learn how to do this stuff, hit me up. I'll drop if you don't mind, I can drop the link here to register.
Can I do it with you?
Yeah.
I was like, what do you have going on with that? Because I not only will have 1,001 questions just onto personal type stuff and things that I've actually watched, but again, like I told you before, your ideal client, Brian, is somebody like me. Yeah, I mean, am I right? Am I wrong?
No, you're right. You're right. Somebody who wants to learn and do it on their own.
Not only wants to learn it, and again, how many times do I hit you up like, hey, what's up with this right here? What's up with that right there? But I'm already working.
Yeah.
So it's not a thing that I need you to hold my hand. It's that, hey, like some training wheels, like I used to have my girl Jessica in my ear because I was scared to jump in here and do this. I tell people all the time I was scared. So when we first started my first few episodes, Jessica was in my ear for about a week or so. For about a week. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't do 54 of these things and just all alone by myself. No, I had somebody in my ear walking me through it with you. As soon as you told me what camera to get, what microphone to get, as soon as you were done talking, I'd already bought it.
Yeah.
I used to get mad at you because I'm like, bro, why did you say that? Because now I have to go on here and buy it and now I got to have you teach me how to use it. But I think that the biggest clap for you, applaud for you, would be somebody that took your words and did something with it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh yeah.
I mean, am I right? Am I wrong?
I love seeing other people being able to use the stuff I show them and teach them and
Mhm.
have success with it. And so that's why I'm always big about you pushing your live stream whenever we do stuff like this, because it helps me and it benefits me just by
Yeah,
validating what I told you and kind of showing you,
yeah.
hey, Fearless can do it. Let's get you started. And a lot of people talk to me, like I get people hitting me up all the time. Hey, I want to do a YouTube channel. Hey, I want to do X, Y, and Z. Hey, this, that, and the third. But once we start getting in the weeds of it, they start doubting themselves and are hesitant to just press the record button and get started.
And I'm the guy that you call for that.
Yeah.
I'm the guy you call for that.
So
We gonna get you moving no matter what.
So I'm doing 3 Wednesdays this month starting tomorrow. It's like a $99 fee or whatnot, because here's the thing, and then we're going to get back into the topic of the show. But one of the things I realized is people value information that they pay for, because there's so much free information out there. And a lot of times if somebody doesn't pay for the information, they're not going to utilize it. It's the free thing you get at the grocery store that you set in the back of your fridge and let rot. You know what I'm saying? Because you didn't pay for it, as
Right.
opposed to the thing that you paid for. And so I'm learning that, on these live streams, we give nothing but free information. When I do the Unstuck sessions, there's opportunities for you to ask me questions directly for free. Doesn't cost you anything. But when I do stuff, I'm starting to learn, let's tie a charge to it so people actually value the information that they're getting. A lot of times people don't. Real quick, Fearless, have you done the thing on Facebook yet? The changing your audience on Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm making sure, because I almost forgot to do it when I first logged on. I was talking for like 5 minutes.
It's so, I actually, man, it's funny enough. I have a whole checklist of stuff that I need to do that I actually have written up here on my board or whatever. So as soon as I get on, I have 6 things that I need to do, and I kind of just go off of every one of them, and then I'm done.
Okay.
So I even myself as a life coach, I have to hold myself accountable by putting these little things up there. Did you do this? Did you do that? You know what I mean? Like, I do all that. Yeah.
Okay. So we talked about why, how it's become glamorized. We talked about people bragging about working themselves to death, essentially, right?
Right.
What are the signs? Like, let's talk about some of the signs of burnout that somebody experiences. A lot of times, the first canary in the coal mine is you start getting really irritable about stuff that you normally wouldn't even bother you.
Yeah.
Like, that's a canary in the coal mine. Mine was detachment. I detached from friends and family for almost 18 months when I was grinding, that first time. And I would go through bouts of it. Whenever I took on a new job or something, or a new role or position, I would do this hyper-focusing lock-in where that ended up becoming my entire existence. And that was kind of fast-tracking my path to burnout. But I started disconnecting from stuff. And then, of course, depression, all the signs of depression that are out there. Okay. Those are emotional signs. Physical signs: feeling tired all the time, no matter how much you sleep. Ongoing headaches, that nagging stress, the anxiety that comes with it. My anxiety came from feeling like I'm in the fishbowl, everybody's watching me, which was, if you worked at Boys Town, which is absolutely true. Everybody's watching you and you're always in a fishbowl. But all the way down to where it's paranoid in my personal life. And just this general sense of dis-ease and never being able, like, my biggest thing was I was on call, and even on weekends when I wasn't on call, being on call and being available to my staff and answering phone calls, phones ringing, And I probably shouldn't answer it because I know it's about work. And I'm like, I got to answer it. I have to. I've interrupted anniversary dinners, movies, soccer games with my kids, all of that stuff, because I'm trying to be the super employee, the best at what I do. And a lot of those calls I didn't have to take because there was somebody else on call. But my staff had been conditioned, and I taught them, just call me directly.
Just call me directly.
Call me directly. I don't care who's on call me directly. And I set myself up for that. And it kind of reached that tipping point. The second time I really experienced that burnout, actually, it's probably the third time, but I set myself up for it when I'm sitting in the hospital with my mom. And this was kind of end of life stuff for her. Hindsight being 2020. This is where it first started. And I'm answering calls from my employees and my supervisor in the room. I've been down this path before. That was kind of, I had been down that path before when my son was born, and I had a different position working with the state doing case management. And my wife's in the delivery room, and I'm answering questions from my supervisor.
Oh, wow.
And so I had hit my wall, and I realized I had hit this wall before, and it was time to start backing off.
Gotcha.
But acting largely out of character and never being able to move away from the job. Like, I knew this, and subsequently people told me this. My mom was the one that brought it up. She's like, do you ever talk about anything besides work? And I had to stop and think. She's like, what do you do besides work? Nothing. At the time, nothing. She's like, are you writing anymore? Are you still writing? No. What do you do outside of work? And for a long time, writing was my path out of working. It was how I could log off, like turn off from work. I could lose myself in the writing. I had a couple of fiction books I was working on and stuff. And that's what I would use to disconnect. But when I started locking in on, I'm a grown up now and I got to move up the corporate ladder, that's the first thing that I gave away. And I gave that away because I have to focus on work. And so my writing, instead of writing, fiction and stuff that was actually relaxing for me, I'm writing reports and, responding to emails and stuff. I gave up the stuff that mattered to me, even in my downtime. I gave up hobbies. And so when I hit that red line, when I hit that wall, that's when I've leaned into, and that was what gave me the skills to start my marketing agency, to be honest with you, because I already had 4 years of college radio experience. I was at a birthday party with my best friend, and he's running his athletic training business. And so I said, let me design your website for you. And then it turned into, let me come take some pictures of the camp so we can put them on the website. Then it turned into video. And next thing, I'm handling all the marketing for it. And this is where I started getting other interests, building websites, building blogs, coding stuff, building apps, learning how to build apps for Android and iPhones and stuff. Like I started putting in other skills and just doing stuff that fascinated me that wasn't related to my job. And so that's how I built the framework to eventually leave the corporate world and start my own business. But it was due to the fact that I got called out because I'm like, you don't have any hobbies. All you do is talk about work. So these are some of the emotional signs of it. And when you're starting down this path, if people call you out and say, all you do is talk about work, that is probably one of the biggest hallmarks that you probably need to start separating a little bit and figuring out, okay, what is my life defined outside of what I'm doing, outside of my job? What is my life aside from that? What does that look like?
It's funny that you say that because as you were as you were saying that, I was sitting there thinking about, for some reason now my mind automatically goes to um every time I every time we get together, my mind automatically goes to like two concepts. What are the 6 steps in this or whatever, and how can I turn this into a presentation? So every time I talk to you, I create probably 4 or 5 different presentations based on what you just said or based on what you talked about. So you're talking about burnout right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I created 3 days worth of things just on this one thing because, and what you did was you helped me to realize that there's 3 steps to burnout. There's what you do to get burnt out. There's the mental part of being burnt out. And then it's the toll that it takes on your physicality.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So it's 3 presentations off top right then and there because of you, my friend. Thank you, my friend.
Welcome.
So I'm just saying, every time we get together, man, and I told you this last week, every time we get together, I get something brand new that I now get to teach and train because I've gone through all these things before. Right? And and putting these things into a chat GPT type of situation and creating this and the other. I'm like, dude, all I do is create shit. That's it. And the great thing that Tony Robbins was just talking about, he said chat GPT could change your life, but it also depends on what questions you ask it and you put in there. And chat GPT understands the more stuff you put in there about you, it starts to understand, like it knows that I'm a life coach, philosopher, father, some of the struggles that I've been through, this and the other. It knows majority of my presentations because we put it together, we change this, add this, blah, 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 blah. So like now if you give me a topic or something like that or whatever, I'll put it in and I'll say P1, which it already knows exactly what P1 means. I need this in this particular form. I need this to go with this, that to go with that. Hit the button and it gives me everything I need. I just go in, put it in Google, change up what I need, and then I create my thing. So that's the reason why I can create this stuff like it's nothing. But talking about burnouts, one of the reasons why I stopped reading, the business books, psychology books, coaching books, stuff like that. The reason why I stopped reading that was very simply because I got tired of being the only person who knew a lot of this stuff. And a lot of the people around me either A, didn't read it, or B, never took any action on anything they read. So I was like, you know what? Let me start reading fiction books. That's when I started getting into John Grisham. That's when I started getting into young adult books and all this other stuff because you have to switch it up. You can't just keep it where you are because you're not growing outside of that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like I want to read about different people, but I also like to read about fantasy sometimes. I like going into the world of Neil Schusterman and people like him that inspire me to think a little bit bigger. So when we're creating some of these things, I not only have the understanding of coaching, philosophy, psychology, self-help, all that stuff, whatever. I also have the grandiose idea of what's possible.
Right.
What can be made possible. The concept of illusion. What are we choosing to accept here? What are we choosing to see here? Man, that's some amazing stuff.
Well, and so one of the things is it's interesting you bring that up because when I was talking to because when we first met, I was kind of doing like general consulting with marketing and stuff, and then we kind of said, okay, let's do the live stream thing. But I was also working with Jessica, and so I was kind of teaching her some of the basics of doing marketing and things along those lines. And one of the things I mentioned was you have to, in order to be good at marketing, you can't just lock in on technical books. right? Like
No.
you have to do more than just read technical stuff. You have to have you have to foster your imagination and think around think around corners and stuff. And so I encouraged, don't just focus on reading technical books. Start reading some fiction stuff too,
You
because
have to.
it
You have
forces you it forces you to encounter a new world in your mind. And you see other things about humans and how human beings interacting. And one of the things about marketing is understanding human behavior. And reading is one of the better ways to do it, but reading fiction allows you to do it. I have a ton of psychology books that I've read. I have a ton of cognitive science books I've read. I have a ton of business books I've read. And they teach me the structural, functional side of marketing, but there's a creative side that I have to attach to. And so I still do have, I'm big into Black horror authors, like ones that write horror, because it's a small subgroup of Black authors that actually do write horror based novels. And so, I'll read them, and, I'm a huge Stephen King fan, and Brandon Sanderson, who's probably one of the most prolific fantasy writers in the world. And he lives 50 miles from here. He lives in Lincoln.
Oh, what's his name?
Brandon Sanderson.
Say that one more time.
It's Brandon Sanderson.
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, he is one of the most prolific fantasy writers working today. And he has a lot of content talking about the art of writing and things along those lines. But reading those and being able to immerse myself in fictional worlds allows my creativity to flourish without having to be directed in any one way, shape, or form. And so when I need to recall on it, or when I need to call on the creativity, I already have that bank of unfocused creativity that allows me to focus, if that makes sense. So, but like I said, I gave away all my hobbies, and that was a sign. That was a big sign. And I know I'm starting to burn out when I start drifting away from things I like to do. Now I'm in
second on that.
Okay.
Give me, because I need to write that down. That is so deep. Okay, signs of burnout, mental fog. Okay, hold on, over stuff. Okay, hold on, things that created. So would that be? Yeah, I gotta write that in there. That's deep. That you gave away. Give away. Give up what? What did you give up?
I gave up writing. I gave up things I like to do, things that relaxed me. I gave up my passions and hobbies and stuff. You know, so I gave up specifically the things I gave up was writing. I gave up a lot of reading of not of fiction stuff. I gave up reading comic books, like a lot of stuff that would rejuvenate me in my downtime. I essentially gave away my downtime. Does that make sense? I gave away all my downtime activities. I shed those, and it was because I'm like, well, I don't have any downtime, so I'm not going to force it.
Okay, got it. I got that in there, so I think I'm gonna make that as a thing. But yeah, now it says giving up other passions. Have you let go of things that used to light you up? Mm-hmm. Examples, hobbies, creativity, or joy, where joy have taken the back seat to just getting things done. And it says reality is that burnout builds when life becomes all obligation and no inspiration. Mm-hmm. Come on, man.
That's exactly what it was. And so, you end up and it's weird because other people can see it on you, but normally you don't see it for yourself. You just say, I'm just focusing on handling business right now.
You know how many times my business partner at the bookstore would be like, dude, when's the last time you read a book? I did. I don't remember. So, man, you should probably go read. I mean, because he understood that my fatigue had started taking over.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like he is always, his baseline is just, once it hits my bandwidth, I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
My mind is that I don't know when to stop. I stop when the job's done.
Yeah.
Like I can't, it's hard for me to turn it off if I still got work to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like I can't, I gotta keep going. Right.
Well,
And I'll break when I'm done.
Well, and here's the scary part for me. I'll be honest with you. The scary part for me is I actually enjoy what I do, like doing the marketing and social media and all the other stuff. I actually enjoy it. It's actually fun for me. And so it's hard finding that line where there's a separation between what I like to do and what I have to do. And so owning a marketing company, I like there's stuff I like to do with it. Now, I did have to start drawing the lines and saying I'd rather teach people than do it for them. And that was a line I drew for myself. But I like doing what I do. I like doing the stuff with the athletic training business. I like creating content for that. I like building funnels and all the other stuff for it. Like I enjoy it. It's kind of relaxing to me, which is scary because when I don't have a separation between what I do for fun and what I do for work, that's where it's easy to fall back down that rabbit hole of, okay, I'm on the path to burning myself out again.
Gotcha.
One of the things, and I think the last time was massive burnout, was I had kind of reached the pinnacle of what my career was. I had reached my career aspirations, which a lot of people cannot say. And I'll be honest with you, it's a kind of a gift to be able to say that. But I had reached the top of my industry in terms of I was literally one step away from, kind of the executive position, which I didn't necessarily want. But I was running my own residential program, had shift staff reporting to me, had multiple layers of managers that worked under me and stuff like that. And I was really in charge of designing my own program. And I was really hyper aware of when my staff was burning out on stuff and not so much with myself. And I would tell my staff, if you're working with kids and families and you burn out, you probably need to go find something else to do, because the decisions you make while you're burnt out will affect these families forever. You need to disconnect and go find something to do for a while. You can always come back. This field, you can always come back. And I was in that mode where I'd slipped away into working. And at the same time, we had this big certification coming up, and my mom was in the hospital across the street. And this was her last time in the hospital. I didn't know it at the time. The day I was supposed to go pick her up to take her home into the house that we had redesigned for her to be able to get around, I get a call saying that her heart stopped. And so that's how that went down. But I was so focused on, let me get through this certification. And then once I get done, I can just go sit in the hospital all day with my mom.
Right.
And so I was locked in and focused and all the other stuff. And then when my mom passed, every bit of energy and passion I had for working with kids and residential stuff evaporated overnight. All that stuff I had in me, all the empathy and all the compassion I had, literally dried up overnight. And I knew that it wasn't going to come back anytime soon. And so I had to end up taking my own advice and saying, I'm burned out and I need to go do something else. And that was the first part of me reclaiming, me stepping away. But also it was a grief response. It was a response to a profound grief. And, my supervisor was really cool. She's like, if you need 6 months off, just let me know if you need sabbatical. I'll give you a sabbatical. They really wanted to maintain me. And at the time I'm like, it's over. Like, I reached this and I don't have it in me to work with the staff anymore and develop them anymore. And, deal with people that aren't as invested in this program as I am. And, I had gone through all that darkness at the same time. So I took my own advice and I was like, I'm burnt out and I'm gonna stop. Hindsight being 2020, I probably should have just taken them up on the offer of the 6-month sabbatical and taken time to get my head right. But for me, it was like, I got to get out of here, and I gotta be a man of integrity, because when I tell my staff they need to bounce when they are in the same position, when they're burned out, when I'm burned out, I need to bounce too.
All right.
So that was my last experience with that burnout, and that was kind of my breaking point. And it was burnt out. I think the burnout was accelerated by the fact that I was going through a very big loss in my life too. But all the signs were there of burnout too. The running the program had dominated my life. I was always on call. I was always talking about work and always doing it. But it was also, I was working my dream job, and so it didn't feel as bad, and it didn't feel as oppressive. So that's the last piece of my stories about the burnout thing. I think, to wrap it up, and so we could start moving it forward, we dwelled long enough on what the signs of burnout are. What does the recovery look like? How do you rebuild from it once you burnt yourself out? How do you start building it? How do you start building yourself back? And there's no one path. Fearless, you're a life coach. You can tell people there's no one path to do this. It's going to be contingent upon who you are, and what supporting framework you have around you.
Well, I mean, yeah, no, that's literally what it is well, first and foremost, man, one of the first things that I teach people and all stuff, and before I go into that, I'm writing this down for you, because I think, man, I don't want to say we're going at this the wrong way, but I think there's something in there for you that I don't even think that you realize. But anyway, we'll talk about that when we wrap up. So one of the first things that I tell people in anything is that you have to define what's going on first. So if it's burnout, cool. But we like to use language, and we like to shove meanings into certain words, and then we assume that everybody knows what that word means, as if we're mind readers. It doesn't work that way. One of the very first things I tell people is define what that means to you, because I need to understand what that word means to you, so then I can understand where you're coming from, so then I can come down and help you based on where you are. Because if I use the word for my own interpretation, my own definition, they may not be the same. So the very first thing that I would say is, can you clearly define and name the real cause, or what's causing you to push you? Where is this happening at? Because a person may say, I'm burnt out. Okay. But what does that mean? Well, that means that I'm tired, I'm fatigued, I'm this, I'm that, blah, 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 blah. So we think sometimes that the cause, the root and the cause is the same thing. That's like saying that I want apples, but you only have seeds for oranges. Something's going to grow, but until you start seeing the fruits of that labor, you may not know that, dude, I bought some orange seeds as opposed to apple. That's why I keep doing it. So some people will keep taking all the oranges down, thinking eventually apples are going to show up. No, it will not. So we need to at least understand what we're seeing, and then peel back the layer of where it started. What is this? Where is this at? So once we can at least name, what are you tired of? What's burning you out? What's burned you out? Then we can understand, okay, it may not have anything to do with the results that you're seeing. You know what I'm saying? You might be burnt out because you may have a certain nut allergy, and you keep eating a certain thing when you go to these particular conferences. Stop eating that shit and you might be a little bit better. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So sometimes anything can be a part of that burnout. So until you know that this is where I'm burnt out at, you're not going to know. So that's number one. Let's define what it is first. Second, the second thing I would say is boundaries. Boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
How has saying yes to everything destroyed your boundaries? Who have you said no to besides yourself?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Think about that. Name what it is. Where's your boundaries at in this? What have you drawn any lines? Because sometimes your burnout literally might be from the lack of boundaries. You haven't set any.
Right.
So if you haven't set any boundaries for yourself and you just let people just walk all over you, of course you're going to get burnt out. Right? So the other thing I would suggest, once we understand what those are, let's reconnect with what you already love. Let's reconnect with that process. You know, you said that you love to write.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you love writing sci-fi, fantasy stuff. You like to sit and read your comic books. There's certain things that Brian likes to do. So let's reconnect with that. Now, here's the thing. There's a plethora of other more steps that we could take, but the first three are very simple. Name what it is, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Redraw your boundaries and reignite what you love. Let's do those three things first, and then we can figure all the rest of this out. When I tell people my job is to simplify life, that's it. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but it will be simple.
Right.
Making $1 million is will be simple, but it may not necessarily be easy.
Right.
Right. So when I tell people, you know, when they ask, what do you do? What do you need me to do? Like, what do you need done? How many times have you said you're going to do something and you backed out of it?
Right.
All right. How many excuses have you made for yourself that you said that you were going to do X, Y, and Z and you never showed up for you? My job is to kind of talk you into doing what you said you're going to do. If anything, it's almost to make your life easy and hard at the same time, or simple and difficult at the same exact time. Because showing up for you, sometimes it's going to be a little difficult. At least at first it will be. Then eventually, I'm going to teach you how to do it to where it's so simple, you don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Right? That's it. So if you're asking from a life coaching philosophical standpoint, that's the first things I would tell you. And we're talking about burnout. First thing is name the burnout. Second is redraw the lines of what boundaries. Third thing, or whatever, find what you love to do. Reconnect with that. For me, it's reading. I love to read. I love to write.
Mm-hmm.
I love to study. Right? So I may have to go off and go read a book for a little bit. Like, and that's a thing that I have. During the daytime, I read.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then I'll do my stuff, and then I'll work on my presentation. At night is when I play my games. Because I'm a gamer.
Yeah.
So at night, after I'm done with everything, that's what I do to relax. I sit and I game for a couple hours. I'll go to bed around 1:00. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. That's my thing. So I have, and again, my routine, my ritual is not going to be the same as that Ashton guy's.
Right.
Not by no means. I get up, stretch, yawn. The first thing I do is I make my bed. First thing I do. I don't go to the bathroom. I don't do anything. I make my bed first. Why do I make my bed? Because most people won't even do that. The simple thing. You got to use the bathroom. So you're going to use the bathroom regardless. You're going to brush your teeth for the most part. Right?
Right.
But making your bed is something so simple, something so trivial. And yet, a lot of people don't do that. That's the first thing I do first. Yep, that's my routine. Then my kid is up. The other stuff I have going on, the kids going. I check my list on things that I need to do. Do I need to go grocery shopping? Do I need to do all my stuff? I have a list of what needs to be done, usually the night before. If I can chill, I go chill. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, I go walking with my friend every morning. That's what we go do, right? So I get at least 3 days of working out every day. Once every week, at least 3 days. Okay, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. No, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's when we go walking, and we walk for long periods of time. So we walk and we talk, and next thing you know, I'm back at the house, and I'm done. You know what I'm saying? So my schedule is not going to look the same as everybody else's,
Right.
and vice versa. That shit that dude was doing, even when I was into hip shop top shape, I ain't never done nothing like that. Never.
And part of it was, I think, because that wasn't the original video. It was a version of the original video. Part of it was his parody. It almost looked like a parody of the original video that he did, because there's aspects of it like, oh, this is completely a different video. But it made him so much money. It went viral because some people were in awe of it. Other people were making fun of it, but it all paid him. And he ended up, if you notice, he was showing the labels of the stuff that he was using. And so those companies would reach out to him for sponsorship deals and stuff like that. It was very strategic the way he organized that.
Perfect. Love it.
But one of the things is, I realized, and this is kind of where I was talking about that intersection of grief and feeling burned out, was it was like it set my life on fire and accelerated me feeling like, I've reached the end of whatever reserves I have. And that's what I attributed my burnout to. Like it burned through my empathy reserves and my compassion reserves, just like that. And so I went from somebody who was always the open office to sit down for staff to come and talk about their problems, to I really can't help you. And I don't want to really engage in this right now. I got other shit I need to do. And I started seeing the edges of that. And that's where I'm like, I attributed some of the burnout to it. Hindsight being 2020, there was a lot of other stuff going on. And it was different from the other times that I had experienced burnout. Because normally it was a path, like burnout was a trajectory that I was on. You know, working 60 hours a week, abandoning all the things I like to do, disconnecting from my family and friends, and it started down a path. This was rapid onset. And within an hour of me coming back from the hospital and going to my office to grab the rest of my stuff, all of my passion for helping anybody just got pulled out of me. And so I continued on. I took the time off and whatnot, and took the bereavement. But then even when I came back, I still was doing it for another month, 2 months, and it was gone. And I couldn't get it back. And that's why I'm like, it was kind of a burnout, but it was different. It was a different kind of I'm burnt out, where my passion for the thing I was doing on a day-to-day basis, where I was high energy and loved it and loved every minute, even the minutes that sucked, I loved it. That was yanked out of me in one move. And so that's why I was like, that's why I was attributing it. It was different. And so the recovery for me was, it was a pathway. It took a long time from that one. And a lot of it was running and escape behaviors. But then once I kind of locked in on what this actually was and what I was experiencing, the recovery was kind of therapeutic. Cleaning out my mom's house was therapeutic. I got a call from my aunt, my aunt / how Black folks do, aunt, but she's my godmother. I got a call out of the blue from my godmother, and she's like, "Your mom came to me in a dream and told you to sell that house." And she didn't know that my mom and I had that conversation. She's like, "Brian, I want you to sell my house." But that's the pathway to start recovering and disconnecting. Because for a long time, I held that house as kind of a mausoleum to her. And it was absolutely wrecking our finances because we could not afford to maintain 2 households. You know, and I didn't necessarily want to be a landlord because I didn't have that in me to do that. And so that was part of the catharsis of starting the process of moving forward. But for me, I guess every time I got burnt out, I would say, okay, I've done what I can do here. It's time to go find something else to do. Find a new adventure. And so that's what my recovery was like. I'm not at a point, I'm not somebody that if it's over, I'm going to stick around. If the thing is over, I'm not going to stick around for it. And so part of my recovery and my rebuilding, I've realized throughout the years, is this is normally when I reach my burnout stage, this is normally when I start looking for something else to do. And that kind of goes into what the advice I've always given my workers and my staff. Another thing is people talk about setting up the systems. Fearless, you talked about your kind of nightly routine, which is a system in and of itself. And a lot of times people don't understand and I did a whole live stream about willpower and the myth of willpower and how there's a biological component to willpower, which has to do with glucose and blood sugar and a couple of other factors and whatnot, where they can actually track how much willpower reserves you have based on doing your blood glucose. And a lot of times having the systems in place allow you to not have to rely just on willpower to get through things. Because you don't have to burn up your reserves of willpower with focusing on specific tasks because you already know what's going to happen next. And here's the thing, and I think a lot of times people underestimate this, but I used to tell parents this all the time. When you're dealing, like when I was working with teaching parents or whatnot, I said, one thing you need to understand about kids will fight you to the ground about structure and routine. They crave it.
Yeah, everybody does, man.
Because structure and routine makes you feel safe. Even though you may feel burdened by it on some level, it makes you feel safe because you know what's coming afterwards.
Right.
And so it works for adults too. And so having that structure, because when you don't have the structure and you're kind of living and dwelling in that uncertain chaos of what's going to come next, that is where it can tap your willpower reserves. And especially when you've reached that point of burnout and you don't have a choice to escape, you have to kind of eat shit and deal with it. Having those systems in place makes it a little bit easier to navigate once you realize that you've burned out. And the last thing is setting the boundaries. A lot of my problem with setting boundaries early on in my career was forged with the fact that I literally could not set boundaries for the first 18 months of my job. I was disallowed from setting boundaries because.
What do you mean by boundaries? Like, what do you mean that you couldn't set boundaries?
I could.
Personal, professional, what?
Personal and professional.
Can you give me some examples?
So the example is this. So with the job I had and the couple I was working with, they were saying their take on it and the way they managed it was, this is not a job, this is a lifestyle. And
wow.
They pulled me into that because it was a lifestyle for them because they lived in the house, right? I did not. But they said, it's not a job, it's a lifestyle. And I held on to that for that first actually probably like 2-3 years.
Hey, is this Boys Town?
This is Boys Town.
Dude, why is it that I know that?
Yeah.
Like, why do I know that? Like, because, like, I'm just saying, like, they're infamous for that type of shit.
Well, and one of the things you got to understand is, I'm trying not to say too much to disparage anything, but
no, I get it. I'm saying that because, like, you were there as a worker, as an assistant FT.
Yeah,
I was there as a child there who experienced it from a person who lived there.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about it, you're talking about it from a staff's point of view. I'm talking about it from a resident's point of view. So no, if I bring that up, I'm talking about what I went through personally.
Oh yeah.
based off of what you're saying. So like, no shame. Boys Town was and I will tell anybody this. I, for those of you who know, I was in foster homes, group homes, and institutions from 7 years old until I was 19. I was a ward of the state most of my life. It was Boys Town. Boys Town is what taught me structure.
Mm-hmm.
The way that they did things, I've never seen anything like that. Even after I got kicked out of there. Yes, I was terminated. I've never seen anything like that since. And maybe that's the reason why everything that I do is based on strategy, based on structure, because that's where I learned it from. And I was only there for like 13 months, I think. I was there when I was 13. I left when I was like maybe 14, maybe 15, somewhere up around there, which is crazy because how is it that I would still remember stuff from when I was 13 years old at this place? And I talked to you before, the instructions, the steps of following instructions are look at the person, say okay, do the task immediately, check back. I still remember that 33 years later.
Right.
Because their shit was so simple. I'm not saying it was easy all the time, but it was simple.
It was easy to understand.
Very, you knew what it was. So any deviation from that, let me get your point card, please.
Yep.
Let me get your point card. You already knew what the consequence was.
Yeah.
Right. So when I talk about all the stuff that I do, and what the fuck, Brian?
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. Every time I talk to you, some new revelation. It never dawned on me why it is that I like things to be structured so much. Because I learned family, not at Boys Town, but at this place called the Nebraska Boys Ranch, which is in Alliance, Nebraska, on the panhandle of Nebraska. That's where I learned family. That's where I learned camaraderie and stuff like that or whatever. Making my bed every morning. I learned that in Job Corps. Because you get dinged for not making your bed, keeping your house in order, or keeping your room in order, right? Again, if you come to my house is spotless constantly. Constantly. It literally looks like I just got done cleaning. A friend was over here last night making dinner for us. And she was like, dude, does your maids do this? I'm like, nah, and I told her, I'm like, I don't like cleaning. I just like to keep it clean. I just maintain what I already did. So I don't clean my house. I got other people who come once a week to clean it. I just maintain what they did. That's it. No more, no less. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this is the first time that I've actually realized where I get this from. Thank you, kind sir.
Well, and one of the things is, from a staff perspective, I'm 21 years old. The Boy Scouts thing is total immersion in their culture.
Yes.
And so even as a young man who was just starting my work life, I was totally immersed in their culture and totally immersed for 18 months. And so when I say I was disallowed from having those boundaries, where if I thought that if I got a call on my off hours, I had to show up with bells on.
And that's with a big smile on your face
and be happy.
I'm happy to be here, boss.
Or like I got called in, and this wasn't anybody's fault. You know, one of the family teachers went into labor. She was having her baby, and I was. This was me and my wife celebrating our anniversary as boyfriend and girlfriend. And so we were kind of hanging out. We had planned out the entire weekend, and I get called in off of that weekend, and I have to work basically from Friday night to Monday afternoon. And so when I got done, I'm thinking, okay, so since I covered this weekend, am I going to get my weekend back? Because where I was working, they would only give me off. They only give me one weekend off every month, and I never got my weekend off back. And so my wife spent the entire time sitting, because we had a hotel and we're going to do movies, we're going to hang out, we were going to just go out about the town and everything. Spent the entire weekend sitting in that room by herself, and I didn't have the wherewithal, and I didn't feel empowered to say, I want my weekend back. This is not fair. I get one weekend off a month, and you guys took that from me. And I understand I have to cover, and that's part of my job. I understand this is part of the job, but I would really I'd rather have the weekend than the overtime. I would rather those days off back than the overtime. And so I did not have a sense that I could say no. For a long time. And then when we got the new family teachers in, I had a little bit of where I could say no, but then it was held against me, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I went from not being able to say no to anything to, you could say no, but you're going to see it in a write-up. And so when I finally got to the last group of family teachers I worked with, it was really kind of, they said, hey, Brian, you got to do the schedule. Just schedule yourself how you need to be scheduled, how you feel like you need to be. That was such a weird thing to me, where I'm like, oh, they're like, well, do you want to go to this thing? No, then schedule yourself off. Don't feel like you got to come. And so it was such a refreshing thing that I did not know how to have boundaries. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like I had them stripped away from me for like 4 or 5 years, that I did not know how to have boundaries. So, and so it took a while, and I had to actually get out of Boys Town, working there directly, and actually go into the case management, which was still kind of tied to Boys Town, but I'm not going to get into that. Yep. And that's where I first learned, okay, I could say no to this, or I'm not going to do this. And so it took a while for me to reestablish it, but the erosion, reclaiming my boundaries was a step in kind of my recovery from the first part of my career. Okay. And setting the boundaries with myself. And then once I became a supervisor, setting my boundaries with my staff. That was another challenge, because I felt like to be a good supervisor, I always had to be available to my staff. And then somewhere along the journey, I'm like, you know what? Being a good supervisor is being able to tell them no when they need to figure out stuff on their own. And so, but setting boundaries was part of my recovery, part of it. So part of how I rebuilt from the burnout thing, because a lot of my burnout was attributed to the fact that I did not feel like I was in a position to say no, or at the risk of losing my job. So, and Fearless, we talked about this, because I'm gonna power through these last points here. One of the things is we've talked about this in previous episodes, redefining what productivity is. A lot of times we end up doing busy work, and we assume that that's being productive, and it goes into the 80-20 rule. Sometimes we get so hyper fixated on the 80% that we don't spend time working on the 20% that actually moves the needle. And we feel busy and accomplished, but then also we feel burnt out and frustrated because we're not any further, because we've been engaging in the busy work bullshit. Mm-hmm. Setting a weekly intention instead of chasing daily output. That's actually a good one. That's a bar right there.
Okay, say that again.
That's a bar right there. Setting weekly intention instead of chasing daily output.
Got you.
And saying, this is what I want to accomplish for this entire week, so that you can kind of give yourself space to say, if I don't want to get it accomplished today, I have tomorrow.
Okay.
And having your non-negotiables. What are the things that you absolutely will not give up?
Right.
When you this is how you kind of protect yourself against somebody driving you to that point, or driving yourself to that point of burnout.
Right.
I do think the big one is the deep work versus busy work. I have to really underline that one, because on a daily basis, especially with some jobs, they fill your day up with tasks,
Okay.
but these tasks don't really move the needle. And then you complete all of them and you feel like you still have more to do because the task didn't really change any outcomes for you. And so sometimes it is thinking outside the box and saying, what is the thing that I can accomplish that will solve this problem so that I don't have to do this busy work all the time?
Right.
Now, sometimes you'll get punished for it. Like if you're an employee, sometimes you would absolutely get punished for it. But having the boundary at the beginning to be able to go and talk to your supervisor and say, this is a waste of fucking time.
Okay.
We're wasting our time with this thing. I do think that that's an important line and distinction to draw. Now, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you have a little bit more freedom with the 80-20 stuff, because if you don't, the what stuff I consider 80 in the 80% is stuff that if I don't do it right now, it's not going to affect my pockets in any way, shape, or form, and it's not going to destroy my business.
Okay.
The 20 is the vital core task to keep the business flowing, to keep money flowing in.
Gotcha.
And I try to focus as much of my personal attention on the 20% and try to outsource the 80 as much as possible.
Okay.
But that's how I keep myself from reaching that stage of burnout, with being a business owner. Now, again, Fearless, I mentioned personally, and this is a self-disclosure, I'm nervous about it because I enjoy what I do so much. It's hard to delineate between things I like to do and things I have to do, because I like what I have to do.
Correct. So then how is that an issue?
Because at what point, what is the canary in the coal mine? Because when I don't like what I have to do, it's easy to say I'm constantly filled with things that I don't like to do, and I feel like it's draining my energy, right? But what's the canary in the coal mine where you are so consumed with your business and stuff? At what point are you on that path to burnout and you don't even know it? Because that's where I'm like, am I on that path again and I don't know it? And I'm trying to identify what are the warning bells for that.
So I think that for myself, and again, experience is the greatest teacher. The greatest thing that I've learned when it pertains to that is I get up and go do something else.
Yep.
Like off top, because I get like that, right? Because here's the thing, I have so many different passions that I love, but there's certain things that I know that's gonna be like job related for the most part, like creating coaching plans, creating training modules, stuff like that. I love doing that. I love to present. I love answering questions, bro. I told you before, like, this is what I plan to do for the rest of the days that God allows me to breathe.
Yeah.
Right. This is it. But here's the thing. I don't always like this. So I go off and go do something else. This will be waiting. Hopefully, if I'm allowed to come back to do it, it'll be waiting when I get back. And here's the thing. I think that there's a difference between your purpose and your passion. Right. And sometimes when you're lucky enough, those two things merge with each other. You know what I'm saying? But I also think kind of like it also kind of sometimes kind of cancels each other a little bit too.
Yeah.
Because I own a bookstore, and then come to find out, I don't really want to own a bookstore. I'm okay if I don't. I don't mind buying books. I don't necessarily need to be the connoisseur of the person who sells them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm okay with that. But I didn't notice that. I didn't understand that until I was doing it. Right? Like, I mean, my partner, cool, all that stuff, whatever. But me personally, like, I'm good. That's not really something that I want to do. Now, if you're going to talk about books, man, we could do that all day long. I love that. I don't necessarily need to sell it. I don't need to sell them. He, on the other hand, loves selling books. He was selling books before I came along. Just like I was reading books before he came along. You see what I'm saying? So, but I was also training. I was also loving the coaching aspect years before he came along. So I think that one of the things, again, man, I'll get up from this And I'll force myself to stop. I'll take my notes and I'll go read a book. So I'll go do something else. I'll go play a video game. I'll go get in my car and listen to music and drive around. I do my best thinking when I'm in the car.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I would do. So anytime you start feeling like, man, am I getting burnt out? You probably, if you have to ask that question, you probably are.
Yeah.
Go do something else.
Yeah. And
Go
okay.
do something else.
And that's one of the things I have to be cognizant of because, and we're going to wrap up here in a few minutes, but I have my ADHD, and one of the hallmarks of ADHD, especially my inattentive type, is hyper focus. I will latch on to something and everything else will drift away.
Yeah. So will I. But that also makes as a shitty parent and a shitty husband.
Yeah. And so, well, unless I'm hyper focused on, because I've been where I was hyper focused on activity with my kids. And
I guess you're okay.
Yeah. Because me and my daughter will go down, like we'll have these long drawn out ADHD because she has it too. And we just have these ADHD rant conversations and go all down all these rabbit holes and everything. But one of the things it does is I'm not aware of the fact that the burnout, like I'm getting fatigued on something until I'm like, whew, okay, I'm done with this. I hate this now. And so but it's kind of a thing where it's always something I'm leery about just because of some previous experience I had where it felt like I got blindsided. But then when you look back on it, I missed a lot of signs. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that was kind of me talking around it. Key takeaways. The idea that you have to drive yourself down to the stump for any goal, you know, it can be a dangerous one. And there's a lot of things on social media that will tell you that there's some kind of reward, or it's a virtue to be willing to work yourself to the bone 80 hours a week, you know, whether it's a job or now as a business owner, sometimes you ain't got a choice. That's what business ownership is. But the idea that you have to give every single part of your soul to a job is an outdated notion, but you're going to start seeing it perpetuate. And I think you're going to see a lot of the young managers that came up through this hustle culture crap on YouTube and on Instagram and TikTok. You're going to start seeing them having those expectations of their employees. So the takeaway is you have to draw your own boundaries and you have to protect your own time. You have to protect your own passions. And don't give away the stuff that brings you light just so that you can impress a boss or a supervisor. Because once you start giving away the things that bring you light, that's when you are on the path to burnout.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, but self-destruction in general.
Yeah.
You know, because, I mean, man, those are the things that they keep you cool, calm, and collected, man. And once you give that away, it's over.
Right.
Well, to a point. I mean, you can always take it back. But unfortunately, then it becomes harder to take it back because you've given it away so willingly,
right?
So freely.
Well, and here's the last part, y'all. I mean, I'll be honest with you. You weren't built to break. You were built to build something that lasts. You're not built to break yourself. You're not built to grind yourself down to your core. You know, it's not you destroy yourself and then rebuild. It's you do the thing to build yourself up. And so if the thing that you're doing isn't actually building you up, it may be time to sit down and look and reevaluate what you're doing.
I mean, yeah, not only that, though, but I don't know where this fits in, but I'm sure we'll shove it in there somewhere. Mm-hmm. But if you think about somebody like Elon Musk, regardless of how people feel about him, you know that the man can probably make a bike. Mm-hmm. He could probably put a bicycle together, right? Now, you know he can put a bicycle together because he's put cars and rocket ships together, right?
Right.
Well, sometimes just go make a bike. Let's go chill. You know what I'm saying? We're not telling you to save the world, bro. I'm telling you to keep your mouth shut, put your head down, and get to work.
Yeah. And sometimes the reality is sometimes you can have a 9 to 5 and it can be just a 9 to 5. and you punch in, handle your business, and then you reserve a space in your brain for you to shut off your phone and go do other stuff. If you have a job where you're given the option of having the email on your phone versus not, opt for not.
Right.
Because that's one of those ways that it will creep in.
Right.
But you're built to build something better. You're built to build your life better, and don't just feel like you have to you don't win any real reward for destroying yourself. So that's what we got. Fearless, I want to ask you for next week. I got a couple of different topics potentially. Okay. So we could either do pricing mistakes and how to fix them, and I could talk at length about that one. That would be more for business owners or people that are looking to step out on their own and start a coaching program or a personal brand or something. And the other option is the overthinking and action to perfectionism trap.
There we go. We'll do that one.
Okay.
Because I want to do something where more people would actually be able to understand or be able to what's the word I'm looking for? Well, with the getting what was the last one? Getting overanalyzing.
Yeah, overthinking in action.
Right.
The perfectionism trap.
More people will actually understand that than they would the pricing and all that. Because if you work at a job, you ain't got no say it's on what gets priced or not.
Well, the thing I was thinking is I'll probably take that pricing one and reconfigure it to talk about how you value yourself and your time, because you do get to negotiate your salary in the terms of conditions in which you work. And so
depending on what you do.
Yeah, but I'll reconfigure that one to make it because that would be one for the unstuck sessions, but that could be one that I can reconfigure for us. So next week we're going to talk about overthinking and action and talk about the perfectionism trap.
Okay.
And so
I love it.
And so that's what we got. Unfortunately, in this studio, I do not have our exit stuff.
Hold on. What do you mean our exit stuff?
Like the outro and intro stuff. The video.
Well, really? Why not?
Because I started doing stuff and it's not uploaded in this specific studio.
Okay. Overlay.
Well, it'll be the video.
Okay, hold on.
I would have to re-download it. So what we're going to say is we'll just say peace. We'll talk to y'all later. We'll catch y'all next week. We appreciate y'all tuning in.
Awesome.
And we'll catch you on next week's.
Yeah, that'll work.